Hello.
Welcome back to another episode of Retrograde, the podcast.
Welcome.
My name is Liz.
And I'm Erin.
And we're here today to talk about... How do I explain this?
What is the title?
I titled my notes with Episode 3, Tumblr Era Fandoms.
I thought you were... Yeah, Tumblr era fandoms, but specifically television shows.
Yes.
So, television shows from the Tumblr era. So, Retrograde is a podcast where we talk about the things that make us go feral, because Mercury is always in retrograde, as far as we're concerned. And we had talked about how we were obsessed with Tumblr as a platform, and Tumblr is a really great place to really express how buck wild you are for something.
Oh, for sure. My hyperfixation really popped off when I was on Tumblr. my peak Tumblr years, my hyperfixation was really out in the open for all to see.
Yeah, and we tagged all of it, so it was really interesting to dive back in and really just re-traumatize myself.
Oh, for sure. This afternoon I was scrolling through my archive from when I joined back in 2011, and scrolled up to 2013, which is when kind of, the obsession with this television show began. And I was like, I'm smelling mental illness.
It's brewing. It's on low. It's simmering right now.
Literally. So yeah, should I start?
Yeah,
Let's pose the question.
Okay, yes.
That we're going to ask at the end.
The question that I think that we could ask, the one that I had written down, was what would be the most popular ship if we were to take one character from my show and one character from your show and did like a crossover kind of thing, and what would be their ship name?
I'm obsessed, yes. Okay, that is a perfect question.
Okay.
Let's do
Great.
one. Only because I didn't bring a question. So.
Oh, okay, great. Glad to know that you did your research, but...
I did, I promise.
I know you did, it's okay. I brought literally one page of notes on a notebook that I can't even read, so...
Oh, it's teeny tiny.
It's very small.
Okay, so I'm going to begin because you talked first last time.
That sounds very accusatory, but go on.
Okay, so maybe we should talk a little bit about our beginnings on Tumblr.
Oh, I like that.
Okay, so...
You said you started 2011, and that your first post was actually in 2010? Am I remembering this correctly?
Yeah, so my first post, I joined December 2010.
Jesus.
But I've really been in on it, like on it, like reblogging shit since 2011.
Wow.
And for me, it was super formative, I guess, to who I am as a person. And kind of really explains why I hyperfixate and, like, kind of shows... It's really funny existing now as a bisexual woman and, like, realizing how I evolved into this. Just based on the shows that I was super into and also the actresses on those shows that I was super into. So scrolling through my archive and like watching my interests jump from one show to another was really funny to me because I was like, yep, I can remember this exact point in my life, and I can remember how it evolved into this other exact point in my life.
Jesus. I remember we would literally, when we met, which was, I want to say 2014, we were both very active on Tumblr, and we would literally, like, sit in common areas, like, whether it be, like, DAC or in our, like, lounge in the, in our actual dorm, and we would just sit on our laptops, our St. John's like distributed laptops and just go through Tumblr and just scroll for hours. And it was like, why, I don't know why it became such a social thing for us to do, but it was literally so many hours that we had spent just being in each other's company, but not even saying anything, not even interacting with each other, just on Tumblr.
Exactly. We would sit in silence and like, so we would read blog posts and tag each other in posts. Like, I have a tag with your name, Erin.
I have a tag with your name, and it's literally insane.
And it's so funny how, yeah, we would just sit, and it was like more than just the two of us. Like, it was our whole group of friends.
Yeah.
We would like sit and scroll and just like,
we would form this like square with all of our laptops like just pressed up against each other, all of us facing towards each other on this like circle table, and we would like have drinks and like snacks and whatever, but we would literally just sit, the four of us or like a group of us, in absolute silence and like maybe music or something, but like literally just not acknowledging each other, not really having like an long in-depth conversation, and we would instead just tag each other and shit, and every time I would refresh my dashboard I'd see
I'd be like, oh, look at all this shit that Erin tagged me in.
Yeah.
And then
I think that was also pre-messaging.
I think so. I think you're right.
And then we got messaging, and we would still do the tagging shit.
I love the tagging shit. I think it's so funny to like look back to like, oh yeah, this is what we were doing.
Yeah, it was really nice, and I liked it, and I really enjoyed the platform. I used it I actually found out that I forgot that I did this, but I had a Tumblr back in 2011, and I had started with that one, but it was like a very specific fandom thing, and I didn't realize that you can make side blogs, and that your main blog should be like really general, and then your side blog should be all your weird fandom shit. So I had made this very fandom specific blog for a show that I'm not going to name because I'm very ashamed of the fact that I was into it. And then
ever in this episode?
Huh?
You're not going to say the name ever?
Of the original fandom blog? No, I'm never going to bring it up. I'm never going to let it see the light of day. I'm never going to let it be associated with me as a person now, because it turns out that the show was about a bunch of Nazis and white supremacists, so I'm not really interested in...
Oh my god, I need to know what show now.
Okay, well, I'll tell you later. So, I had, I had this blog, and then I, like, didn't want to be associated with it because I had inadvertently gotten into some really weird shit, and so I was like, I really need to move. I need to move my house. I need to get out of this neighborhood. Like, this ain't what I'm about. The author had said some really xenophobic stuff, and I was just like, oh my god, where am I? I'm lost.
Yeah.
I went from, like, taking all the characters and, like, making them all gay ships to being like, okay, I really gotta, like, jump this whole boat. Like, this whole thing is, like, a mess. So I had to create an entirely new blog, and so that one ran back from 2012, end of 2012, but really 2013 to 2015, where, like, Tumblr had stopped being a thing on my radar.
Totally.
But that, the same kind of thing where, like, I would just be into all these fandoms and, like, get really into it and tag all my friends and stuff. And I would be so deep into, like, the discourse or whatever. But I had peaked when, like, a new episode would come out, and that was the prime time. I'm telling you, like, people were so starved for content once an episode came out, especially that first, like, you know, on a lot of shows, especially like primetime stuff, it comes out at like 7 or 8 p.m. and then the episode ends at around like 9 to 10 p.m. So that like 9 to midnight window was like peak for activity, and you could get so many notes for the most garbage content.
Oh, for sure.
So I would just doodle the dumbest shit. I would slap something together in 2 seconds, and literally it would get like 300 notes for no fucking good reason, other than the fact that it was like pertinent to when that episode came out. So that was how I farmed for followers and also for notes.
Well, I was probably on the opposite end of that, where it was like the episode just ended and I was like rapidly refreshing the tag so that I could like reblog any kind of like fan fiction that someone had written about the episode already, or like GIFs that people had made about the episodes, or like screen grabs, like anything I could get my like dirty little mitts on. I was like desperately hitting the reblog button, like spamming the shit out of my followers, like completely feral.
Would you do fandom exchanges?
No, please explain.
So, like, it's like a Secret Santa, and usually that's when most people get involved with that, but sometimes there's, like, non-seasonal specific fandom exchanges where you would, like, enter a pool blind, and then someone would pair you up with someone, and then you would gift them, and then you would get a gift. So, like, if I could draw, and you could write fan fiction, like, you would be like, oh, I want this pair in a drawing somehow. And then I can write fan fiction for this pairing. So then I would give you a drawing and you would give me a piece of fan fiction.
Gotcha. No, I never participated in that. The most I ever did was I would submit prompts to this one fan fiction blog because I was like, I want this content specifically.
Love that.
Yeah, so so the show that I'm going to be talking about is a show that I was trash for a long time. And I stopped watching towards, I think, the second to last season. I literally don't even know how many seasons of the show there are because it's just completely derailed and became something that I hated the show towards the end. I really held a lot of resentment towards it, and also like held a lot of resentment towards the writers and like the what's not the channel, but what the
producers,
like ABC. Like I was just like,
oh, okay, the network.
Yeah, I was like, fuck ABC, like this is ridiculous. But like I was so into the show for such a long time, and like it still holds like a very special place in my heart. And that show is Once Upon a Time.
How did I know?
Because I'm psycho about it.
Truly, like, if there was anything to try, like, demonstrate your hyperfixations and, like, show how far you would go for a show or, like, anything that you become obsessed with, Once Upon a Time is, like, the prime example.
Oh, I know. So I was absolutely feral. I had posters. I had pillowcases.
What?
I have Funko Pops. There's like a book. There are several books written. I have them. Yeah, I was super into it. I was really, really into it. But like before I got into Once Upon a Time, I was like, okay, I want to look back like on my Tumblr trends. Like I thought it was like kind of interesting to like see, because I know that there were like a couple of preceding shows and actresses that like kind of built me up to this level of like hyperfixation and like complete obsession.
Oh, really?
So I'm gonna get into it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So no, it's fine. So I would thought it would be fun to like talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so I scrolled all the way back to 2011, post 2011, which is bad. And what I found is that I had a lot of cat gifs, as one does in 2011. A lot of like Chris Martin from Coldplay gifs. Which is funny because like now that I think about it, it was probably around the time where like the only thing I was listening to was Coldplay.
Oh my god.
Which
amazing.
Is, like, kind of cringy, but whatever.
Coldplay slaps.
Okay, but like so in 2011 I had a crush on this kid that I was in high school with, and like honest to God, he like wasn't even that cute and like was actually kind of mean to me, but I was still obsessed with him. I was like, oh man, he's my friend, like I really like him. Like, what if we dated? And then my best friend told him that I had a crush on him, and he was
what a traitor.
Literally a traitor. So then he texted her back and was like, oh, like, I'm not interested in...
Wait, she did it over text?
Like that. Yeah, isn't that horrible? So then I go, oh. And immediately, I listened to Coldplay, and only Coldplay for like 4 months straight.
Because because that's traumatizing. What a traumatizing experience. Oh my god. Even Degrassi would not do this to their characters. Like, they would not have this level of disrespect for them. Holy shit, Liz!
Literally 16 years old and being rejected for the first time, not even directly. Literally
yeah, that's the
indirectly.
thing. Like, if you guys were at, like, a party or a function of some kind, and y'all were, like, just chilling, and, like, she brings it up in, like, an awkward way or something like that, and, like, he's like, nah, not really. Like, at least that has a little bit more of, like, an emotional impact, and I'm sure it'd be a lot less callous that way. But, like, over text, it's so...
I know, isn't that mean?
What was he gonna be like? Actually, yeah, give me Liz's number so I can text her to say, hey.
He had my number. We were friends.
Oh, I don't know.
Whatever. He is gay now, and so am I. So let's move on.
Is he still ugly?
Yeah, well, no, he's not. He lost a lot of weight and like started working out, and now he is selling homes in the Hamptons.
Oh my god. Good for him.
I know, good for him. But, yeah, so there was a lot of Coldplay content because of that.
Okay.
I kind of those, like, cringy memes with quotes that are like, your opinion is irrelevant because I hate you. One of those graph things that, okay, so the title of the graph says, when it is appropriate to quote Mean Girls, and then it's like a pie graph, and it's all blue, and, like, the key on the side is like a blue square, and it says the limit does not exist, like shit like that.
Jesus, Liz!
I know, it was really bad.
I can't believe you're willing to just, like,
I was really just
reblogging
like anything out there. I was just really, like, throwing reblogs to the wind. A lot of owls, whales, anchors, ukuleles, like typical wannabe hipster Tumblr content. And then in August of 2011, up pops an insane amount of Glee content. Okay, hang on one sec. What? I can't wait. I can only do it from 7:30 to 7:30. Yep. Oh, I can do it tomorrow. Yeah, and also. Okay, sorry, you'll have to cut that.
That's alright.
And then in August in 2011, an insane amount of Glee content arrives. And so then as 2011 progresses, it becomes more Leah Michele oriented, who played Rachel on Glee.
Yes.
And so officially Leah Michele becomes my first Tumblr girl crush.
Incredible! Wow, I love seeing this genesis. I love it.
And
it's like the little seed of attraction being planted into your mind.
Truly. So I posed the question, did Leah Michele make me gay? Probably.
I mean, she's so cute.
I know. It was like a baby crush, like... But, like, also at the time it was, like, very unconsciously, like, not a crush. Like, I was like, oh, I think this woman is, like, really attractive, and, like, I'm gonna consume as much content of hers as possible. So, like, I was, like, watching every episode of Glee twice, and, like, reblogging every GIF I saw, every picture I saw. And, like, also she was in this musical called Spring Awakening that I became completely obsessed with.
Yeah.
Which is about a bunch of German youths, like, becoming sexually active for the first time. So, yeah, I mean, I was obsessed with her. I really was obsessed with her. And then I also wanted to point out that at the end of 2011, there was a splash of My Little Pony content.
Were you a brony? Like, briefly?
Only for Pinkie Pie specifically. Which I could also argue that I had a crush on Pinkie Pie, which then makes me pose the question, am I a furry?
Are you a furry? Is Liz a furry?
Next week's episode, we're going to analyze if I'm a furry.
Specifically just you and whether you have an attraction to anthropomorphic animals.
I don't. Truly.
Spoiler alert, she's not a furry. She is attracted to human people, thank you.
Thank you, I have a girlfriend that I love very, very much.
And she is a human girl.
She is a completely human, yes. Okay, so, and then 2012. 2012 was a weird year because I started using Tumblr as a platform as like a diary.
Oh, you were making shit. Like you were creating content.
Yeah, I was like posting text posts. That was like very irrational, emotional, venting posts. And like now that I'm old and wise, I'm realizing that they were definitely not the best for my mental health, and I probably should have been seeing a therapist.
Oh no!
But they were super. Yeah, I mean, it's not funny, but also whatever.
Only funny content for the podcast, Liz. What do we talk about?
What do you mean I can't
keep your traumas at the door?
What do you mean I can't talk about my body dysmorphia in 2012?
Oh no.
It's fine anyway. Okay, so then after so my 2012 was riddled with these, and I was like, oh my god, please throw these away. But then it was also riddled with Zooey Deschanel content. Very, very minimal, but like it was there. Mm-hmm. I saw a post about Coney 2012, which I laughed about. Thought I should point that out.
Oh, I forgot about that. I guess that would be circulating on Tumblr because I was on Facebook mostly at that point in my life, so
right.
It was on Facebook that Coney shit was happening.
Mm-hmm. So then my second trend of like hyperfixated content was Gilmore Girls.
Oh yeah.
I became completely feral and obsessed with Gilmore Girls, and specifically Lauren Graham, who plays Lorelai Gilmore on Gilmore Girls. And I got into Gilmore Girls because I had a dream about Lauren Graham, wherein she was like, in this dream she was posed as like a very maternal figure, and like it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but like I woke up from the dream and I was like, I immediately need to watch every season of Gilmore Girls right now. So I did watch every season of Gilmore Girls, and I became feral. I was obsessed. I was like a Gilmore Girls stan. I have the box set. I was in it.
Jesus,
so this was the second woman that I was posting about on Tumblr that I was like so into, and like not realizing that it was a crush. Mm-hmm. And also it's like kind of funny because I found a post that I had written that I read, and I was like, how did I not know that at this point I was gay? And the post reads, so the episode of Gilmore Girls where Rory drops out of Yale and Lorelai proposes to Luke, Lauren Graham's boobs look so amazing in the dress she's wearing when she proposes to him. Ugh, I love her. Absolutely feral.
Oh my god, you dead ass made a whole ass Tumblr post to be like, her titties look so good. Anyway, thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
About Lauren Graham's tits. Like, am I okay? And then, the end of 2012, November 2012, appears the first Once Upon a Time post. And then after that, it just goes apeshit. It goes absolutely berserk.
Yeah, that show started in 2012, right?
The first episode aired October 23rd, 2012.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And I remember watching the first episode. I DVR'd it.
Oh, wow. My
cable box.
Jesus, we're old.
I know. And so then I came home from school that day, and I sat down, and I watched the first episode off my DVR, and I immediately became obsessed. The episode finished, and I turned it on again and watched it a second time in a row because
How are you like that? Like, how does that occur to you to do that?
It's just like I wanted to watch it again. I was like, I love this so much. I want to watch this again immediately.
That's nuts. That's nuts.
I used to do that all the time. I was so into this Disney movie. It's a children's movie called Once Upon a Mattress.
Yeah.
It's a musical.
Yep.
Zooey Deschanel is in it.
Yep.
And I think I was also using this movie as a coping mechanism, but I won't get into it. But like it, I would rent the DVD from my local library and then would watch it. And there was one point where I was watching it 2 times in a row every night.
Oh my God, Liz.
So yeah, I guess you can say I'm a stan.
This is more than a stan. It's
obsessive.
Deadass obsessive. Like, truly.
Maybe.
Just to bring
maybe. It's mental illness, isn't it?
In it. What's that Florence and the Machine lyric? Just to bring up another one of your obsessions. Where she's like, what kind of man? I think it's What Kind of Man the song is, where she's like, kiss that lasts
10,000 years or something.
Yeah, some kind of what is
with
the
one
fucking...
kiss, there's a spark of devotion that lasts 20 years.
Yeah, that's the one. That's you. That literally, like, I mean, when that album had come out, I was obsessed with that song, and I was like, oh, what a powerful line. And now I'm just like, that's me with anything, TBH. Understandable now. I can empathize.
Okay, yeah. So I became obsessed. Like that's all I thought about. And so, and integral. What?
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, like, what is the, like, premise, like, what is Once Upon a Time as a show?
Right. So, the show is about, this woman named Emma Swan, and she's 28 years old, she's a bail bonds person in Boston, and her son, long-lost son, that she had when she was in prison, shows up to her apartment in Boston, and is like, you're my mom, and she's like, well, I gave you up, 11 years ago, what are you doing here? And he's like, you have to come back to the town that I live in and break this curse that my mother, the evil queen, has set on everyone. Every person in this town, Storybrooke, is a fairy tale character, and the mayor, Regina, is allegedly the evil queen and cursed everyone to live like this monotonous lifestyle in this town in Maine, and like pulled them from their storybook realm and dumped them here, and no one remembers anything. And so then Emma Swan is like, well, you're wrong. That was like this, but you're here in Boston, so I need to deliver you back to Maine. So she takes them back, and then she ends up staying, and it turns out that everyone is cursed. And somehow that generated 7 to 8 more seasons after that, which doesn't make any sense. Let the show fucking die, but, yeah, the concept of, storybook characters living in this, like, modern day town and, like, having someone break this curse, like, was so intriguing to me. And the show that, like, got me with this plot sucked me in, and I became obsessed with the characters, I think is what got me there.
Yeah. I remember when the show had first come out. I mean, there were a lot of shows that had, like, really bloomed in 2012 that had probably propelled my own venture into Tumblr as well. Like, I can just think of all these shows, like Teen Wolf had also come out in 2012, I believe.
Sure.
The Legend of Korra had come out in 2012. Sleepy Hollow, Elementary, these were all shows that I was obsessed with that for some odd reason started in like 2012, 2013. And they all were really great shows. They were, but they really propelled it. And Once Upon a Time was one of those shows that like everyone was watching, and everyone was obsessed with. And I remember very distinctly that like the reason why a lot of people had gotten into it was because of the interesting characterizations that the writers had taken with these things, because it wasn't just like Snow White is here. It was like, oh, like she is like, how would that translate in the modern world? Like, how is that actually translated instead of just transposed over?
Right. And like now me now dislikes the writing in the show so bad in the later seasons, but like even now rewatching season 1, it's like a really good show. And like it makes a lot of sense why it was like so popular and like why a bunch of people watched it. And they also got really good actors. The whole cast is insane. Which then leads me to talk about how I became absolutely obsessed with the woman who plays Emma Swan, Jennifer Morrison. I just became absolutely ferally obsessed with her. And, like, my Tumblr became absolutely riddled with just Jennifer Morrison content.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I literally just had the biggest girl crush on her I have ever had. And her character, Emma Swan, was just, like, everything I didn't know that I liked and needed. Like, she's this, like, really kind of gruff, tomboyish, tough, like, badass woman, and she's just wearing, like, white wife-beater tank tops and, like, walking around with no pants on, and I was like, oh, okay.
Oh,
and, like, at that point, I think I was, like, kind of going, do I like women? And, like, being like, oh, this is the thing that's happening. And, yeah, I'm not saying that Jennifer Morrison made me realize that I'm gay, but...
Listen, it's happened for people. It's happened to people for less. That's all I'm gonna leave it at.
So at that point when the show really started like popping off, I was on Tumblr pretty heavily, and I was like, like this is cool. Like I want to know what kind of content we got going on this website. Like, and all my friends, some of my friends from high school and I at the time were like writing fan fiction for another show. We were writing it over text message.
You were role-playing? Y'all were role-playing?
Oh my god.
That's what that is, Liz. You know what that is, right? That's role-playing. Y'all were role-playing. Oh my god. Open RP.
Oh my god. It was essentially that, but for this like vampire show that got canceled after one season that we were like so into. It's called Moonlight.
Never fucking heard of it.
It's really trash, but it's so good. So we were, I guess you could say that we were role playing, but like we were also at the same time taking like the plot points from this text role play and like writing a fan fiction about it, and we were posting it onto fanfiction.net.
Oh, nice.
So then I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm getting a lot of this great Once Upon a Time content from Tumblr. And, like, now I'm on this other website, like, what does fanfiction.net have to offer me for Once Upon a Time? And at that point, like, I didn't even realize, like, shipping two characters that aren't together canonically was a thing. Like,
What?
The whole
This is so interesting. So you were a fanfiction writer.
I was.
At the time that you...
Yeah, and I was only shipping, like, people, like characters who are canonically together, or I was writing my own characters to put together with.
That's so interesting. This is so interesting. So your first entrance into fandom. Listen, this is very interesting, okay? Because like this is fascinating for me because I've been steeped into fandom so long ago, like. I was on LiveJournal, like that's how old I am and have been on fandom culture. Like I was deeply involved. I was a moderator on some of the biggest like threads.
Oh my God.
One of which is literally like an anonymous prompt exchange where people will leave prompts and someone will anonymously fill out those prompts for certain characters and like what they want to see. And I was a mod on one of those, and it's one of the biggest, like, threads that you could possibly be on for LiveJournal. And, like, so much of my fiction was there, and fan fiction was there, like, because they had not just, like, fan fiction stuff, but also, like, original fiction that you could just post, and it was wild. But, yeah, like, the fandom, existence is so like it's been built in me, but for you were like, oh, time to deep dive into this shit and take a crash course. So I'm very interested to hear about your
so I'm chilling on fanfiction.net and I'm like, all right, like let's like just look up Once Upon a Time. And I go to the Once Upon a Time tag, and it's literally just riddled with Regina, who is the mayor, and Emma Swan fan fictions with them together, like them in relationships and like them sleeping together. And I remember being like, oh, this is a thing. Like, this is really cool. And like, I was like kind of shocked, but then I like really thought about it, and I was like, yeah, this makes so much sense to me, because it's like these two women, like both of them have really fucked up backgrounds. Like Emma was an orphan for her entire life until she like outruns the foster system at age 18 and like gets fucked over by her criminal boyfriend and like ends up in prison and has this baby, and then like has to remake her life. And then Regina has this like, in fairy tale land, has this like really abusive mother, and like is groomed by her husband, who she's forced to marry at age 16, and he's like 50 years old and like disgusting, and she's like groomed to be this like perfect bride, perfect queen, but then like she is trying to learn magic to get out of this abusive relationship, and like becomes this like evil entity, but she's like not really evil because like she was forced into these circumstances. Whatever, obviously. But like the thought of those two women with such like complex backgrounds and like complex characters together, and like they already share a son, and like the chemistry between Jennifer Morrison and Lana Parrilla on the actual television show was so much for me. And like once I knew that like that was even a thing, I would like go back and rewatch episodes and be like, oh my god, look at this eye contact, and like look at the way
oh my god,
like look how close they're standing together. And like I immediately became a Swan Queen stan, which is the ship name, Swan Queen.
Oh my god, the chemistry, the behaviors of a true fan, like a true Swan Queen fan is literally just like going through, and like a 2-second clip of a television moment literally becomes a 6-image GIF set.
Literally, out of 45-minute episodes, like 15 seconds of an episode would become my entire blog for like a week.
Yeah. Like 6 different people will create different GIF sets, and I will reblog all of them. Like, I understand that.
Literally me. I was reblogging GIF set, I was reblogging screenshots, and I was reading a lot of fan fiction, and I was high-key obsessed with it, and I low-key still am, because there's good shit out there. Like, I've read fan fictions that are better than published books, and there's good shit out there.
I have read some really, really good fan fictions, and actually, up until I would write original fiction, and then I exclusively wrote fan fiction for a big part of my like high school experience. Was just writing fan fiction, and like I remember like writing these like 10,000 words. And, like, looking up to these people who were literally writing, like, 200,000-word fan fictions of, like, God knows what. It's, like, a domestic AU or, like, some bullshit like that. Slow burn.
Like 101 chapters, like...
Deadass! It'd literally be, like, so long. There would be, like, these subplots happening on top of the main plot. The overarching themes would be there. The fucking pupils would dilate. The smells would enter the nose. It's just a whole experience.
Yeah. So I like, went back onto my fanfiction.net account and was, like, trying to find the first Swan Queen fanfiction that I had read, because I remember it so distinctly. It's titled To Remember Her Happy Ending, and it's an established Swan Queen relationship, and they're going on an anniversary trip, and they're going to this cabin in the woods, and they get into a car crash, and Emma gets amnesia, and she loses her entire memory, doesn't remember her wife of like 10 years, and like
oh my god,
like, how am I supposed to like live my life loving this woman who she doesn't even know me? And I remember reading it, and also this was the first time that I had read smut, like really well written smut, and I was kind of like, oh. this is very fascinating. And I found it and I was like, oh, this is so funny. And then like I went through all my other favorites that I had, which were like 4 billion, and I was really consuming a lot of written content.
Yeah, if you count fan fiction as like as books or like as stories, and even if you were to just like try and combine them and think about them, like the average book is about like 70 to 100,000 words,
right?
And you think about all of the books that you have technically read, by that metric, like there's a lot of original stuff that you've read and like that we have read, that just don't count because it's written by someone and not like published.
Oh, for sure. And then I looked at my first fan fiction, Swan Queen fan fiction that I ever wrote, and it was published in March 2013. So,
oh wow!
Like,
so the gap between you consuming the work and then contributing to the work was pretty tight.
Totally. And I've written 3 total published Swan Queen fan fictions. And there are a ton more unpublished that will never see the light of day. So
I understand that. I have a lot of my drafts that I still have and save, and I sometimes look through them and I'm like,
it's just not even that they're bad. They're just like, I don't want to publish them because like I want, there's just more content than I want to write to go along with them, you know?
What do you mean? Like they need to be more fleshed out?
Yeah, exactly. They need to be more fleshed out. Or like I had like started writing this like multi-chapter fic that I wanted to post, and like I got like 4 chapters in and stopped, and then I just like felt like I wouldn't be doing anyone a justice by posting it and then like not updating it. Because that drives me absolutely wild.
I understand that. Yeah, I've been guilty of doing that.
Yeah. So it was just funny looking back, and you know, I think Swan Queen and Once Upon a Time taught me that 2 women can be in love, and like it also taught me that like a fandom and the content that a fandom creates can be more and like more powerful and more impactful than the actual content of the show. Because towards the, you know, later episodes and the later seasons of Once Upon a Time, you know, every season finale, every, you know, winter finale, I would be on Tumblr and like reading all these posts that will be like, oh, do we think like the writers are going to put Emma and Regina together? Like it would make sense if they like made them kiss, and like what if they hugged or like showed any kind of like compassion towards each other, canonically. And like every time it didn't happen, it just like felt like a bullet to the heart kind of deal. And then like towards the end, it was like there had actually been like a couple of interviews where like the writers were like, oh, we're actually never going to put Regina and Emma together, so forget it.
Wow.
Yeah, and there was a bunch of online discourse with like people who shipped Swan Queen, and then people who shipped like Emma and Captain Hook, who like is canonically together.
Oh, okay.
So there was a lot of discourse there, and like a lot of like hate and like actual arguments, and it was kind of like, okay, like why are you getting heated over this? Like you have your ship.
Yeah.
Like let us just enjoy ours.
Because heterosexuals be like that.
Truly aggravating everyone's time. And then like the writers started queer baiting and like writing like really shitty episodes where, I don't know, you know, to appease the homosexuals that watch their show that want Swan Queen to be a thing so badly, they like wrote some stupid, well not stupid, but like they wrote in like one queer character for one episode, and then you never saw them ever again.
Jesus, of course.
Right. And so
that's annoying.
Yeah. So the show has ended since I think 2017, 2018.
Wow.
Regina and Emma do not end up together, but it's fun because I get to read all this other content that's still being pumped out because people like still are obsessed with it and like still love the ship and like love these characters so dearly. And yeah,
that's amazing. And you know, like the thing about that is that like fandom becomes this welcoming place where writers tend to like fall off, because I find it interesting that you had actually mentioned like fuck the network specifically, because like oftentimes the network, you know, the executives feel that they have control over the creative content that gets produced, and it's really like you have no place to really dictate where this goes.
Right.
And so a lot of times, like, sometimes good shows get subverted by capitalist interests, and it just becomes this like cesspool where like the original story, you know, the interesting elements of it become commodified, and it like ruins good content. So like I think it was a good distinction to say, like, you know, probably ABC had a hand in like whether there were queer characters and like whether that representation existed, and how whether like if they thought that Swan Queen could happen and, you know, they wouldn't have to fight for it, do you think that it would be more likely that they might consider it? Or if they thought that was a losing battle, would they just like immediately write it off?
Right. So like I think that is a big thing, because like I used to like the page on Facebook and like would like posts that they posted, and like a lot of the times people would be in the comments like, oh yeah, like Swan Queen, like give us Swan Queen, blah blah blah, and then there would be like 40 crusty old white women going on there and being like, I don't want to see no homosexuals on my Hardy Family ABC television network.
Yeah.
So I think that probably had a lot to do with it, was like ABC not wanting to like, you know, show a queer couple on television.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially not like a woman loving woman couple.
Yeah.
I feel like it's more taboo in a way. Like I'm thinking in terms of Modern Family, which is also on ABC, and they have a gay couple. They have, you know, that redhead and that, I don't know. I don't even know their names.
I know what you're talking about though. The two main characters are one of the.
Yeah, with their adopted Asian daughter, and like that's fine, but like, when was the last time you saw like a lesbian couple on ABC or CBS or?
Right, and like the idea of like lesbian is considered a bad word for like mainstream people, whereas like you can say gay and it's fine. Right. And so like a lot of people, and me included, like I'm comfortable with saying gay, and not that I'm uncomfortable with saying lesbian, but like, you know, that becomes a more commonplace term and it feels less like a dirty word as opposed to like lesbian. It's like, ooh.
Yeah, I don't know why there's so much stigma behind the word lesbian, but I guess there is.
Lesbophobia is so pertinent, and it's still pertinent. And
I said those dirty lesbians.
Literally, like that's the kind of connotation that is associated. So, unfortunately, like that's the thing that we have to battle. It's funny because like you bring up Facebook, and it's like Facebook is a platform that like a lot of people don't really use, especially like millennials, Gen Zs, like they really don't use Facebook. They feel like it's basically like a social LinkedIn where you like have this profile and it's facing your family members or your employers, and it's like, look, I'm a good little person who like has a Facebook profile, so I'm normal. And then you go on Twitter or your Finsta and you like go off and you pop off with all these fucking videos of you like getting absolutely turned. Because, you know, like, people used to get in trouble for posting, like, videos of them getting drunk on Facebook, so, like, it became, like, a great big connotation. And, you know, all these old people use Facebook, so it's, like, an old people platform.
Right.
But it was because it was at the peak of its, like, user base, not just with old people, but also with, like, our generation. Like, I had also liked all the, Facebook pages for my favorite shows, and I would see comments from people who were like, you know, not on Tumblr, not on Twitter, not on Instagram, who would like talk about the shows that they liked in the comment sections of whatever content that they were talking about.
Right.
For the show, and that was a good like litmus test for me to figure out how people felt about the episodes, because sometimes you go on Tumblr and you're like going through the tag and you're like, I wonder what normal people think about this show.
Exactly. That's why I would like go through the comments, because I would be like, what do the middle-aged people think about the show? What do all the like grandmas think about the show? Like, I want to know. And like, it became kind of like that uncle you have on Facebook that's like a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
Where they like comment like, why is this black person doing this thing? Or like,
oh no,
really racist things. So yeah, it was like kind of like that where they were like,
yeah,
I love this heterosexual couple. Yeah, the way God intended it to be.
Fuck.
Thing.
Gross. It was also validating to like have an opinion about something and then go on Facebook and go through the comments section and see that other people are saying that, like fucking Janice in Oklahoma would be like, I don't like that either.
Yes.
Like, yes, Janet, go off.
Right, like the writers would like write some stupid plot line, like some stupid fucking plot line, and I'd be like, oh my god, this is the dumbest thing in the world. And like I was already being validated on Tumblr, but like also it was like a lot of like-minded people on that platform, so then I would go onto Facebook and be like, thank you people for validating.
Some points were made.
Literally.
I remember Elementary had brought in for season 2. I mean, season 2 was like a fucking bomb. It sucked. It literally is the worst fucking season of the whole series. And I like, whenever I recommend the show, I'm always like, just skip season 2. Read the wiki for it. Because they introduce Mycroft, who is Sherlock's brother, as a character. And first of all, they hired the ugliest actor in the entire world. I'm sorry, like, no offense. Like, he's a very talented actor. I don't remember his name, but it was just not a right role because he acts as a romantic interest for Joan, and he really, like, it just was not compelling at all. It made no sense. There was no chemistry, and it felt very forced, and there was all kinds of shit that happened, like this plotline that made no sense. And then on Facebook, like, you'd get these people who'd be like, this fucking rat face gentleman needs to get off the screen. And I was like, these are some, like, roasts that are worse than the shit that I've seen on the Tumblr tag. And that's telling you something.
That's so funny. Was that Jensen Ackles' character?
Who?
Jensen?
Bro, I just said the words, I don't know who fucking plays this guy. And you come up with some random ass name. You could have said anything, and I would have been like, huh?
No, he was like a big thing. He was like huge on Tumblr, and like, there was some point where like everyone had changed his face. Oh, I got the wrong television show.
No, I was not involved in any of the Super Hulock stuff. Let me make that fucking clear as fucking day. I was not involved, and if anything, I was bullied by all those fucking BBC Sherlock hoes, because, Bendy Hoot's Cumbersnatch was like, Lucy Liu looks like a rat, and she's not fit to play Watson, and the Americans can't take an adaptation of Sherlock Holmes, and then, boo, your show fucking sucks. It always sucked. Your show sucks.
Oh my god.
A lot of people that I respect like that show, and that is the most unfortunate part.
Sherlock?
Yeah, and even like Supernatural, like, and nothing against Supernatural or Doctor Who or Sherlock. Actually, full offense to Sherlock. But no offense to the other two. Like, those are actually good shows that like apparently were very successful. I just didn't watch it because I didn't have cable. But Sherlock can rot in a hole and die.
Oh, well, I've never watched a single episode, so
don't watch it. It's high-key racist. It's very wrong.
That's the one with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah, the one with Bandersnatch and that other guy. The guy the guy who looks like an otter, who is the John Watson or whatever.
Everyone used to compare him to Hedgehog.
Yeah.
Which was like so 2013 cringe.
My favorite Tumblr post, and it enters my mind probably once a month. It's this alien who jumps into the street and starts chasing this kid.
I know exactly what post you're talking about.
And the caption goes, Benedict Cumberbatch harasses a black youth.
Oh my god. Oh shit. Oh my god. Okay, should we talk about your show?
Yes. So it was interesting because when I was listening and editing the episode prior to this one, I had brought up like, oh yeah, Tumblr, my personal peak of Tumblr content and usage was 2013 to 2015. And then like upon discovering that I was actually on the platform for longer, I was like, oh shit, I have to look through more content. But then I was like, what? Well, I mean, like I really didn't use it, so who cares? So I went from 2013, and the only show that the show that like surprised me that I completely forgot that I was super into until I looked through my tag was one called Hannibal on NBC. Do you remember that show or anything about it?
I don't remember anything about the show, but I know it's about Hannibal Lecter.
Yes.
And I know that the actor who played him is super scary looking. Really freaky
Mads
looking.
Mikkelsen.
What?
His name is Mads Mikkelsen.
Okay.
Mikkelsen, whatever.
Sorry, what?
No, it's Mikkelsen. I always say Mikkelsen, but it's Mikkelsen.
And then I know that there was like some gay stuff that everyone on Tumblr would talk about. I had a friend in high school who was super into the like super hulock stuff.
Oh yeah.
And she was into Hannibal for a little, so I got some of that content on my feed.
Yeah, it's the right combination of like white male characters, some element of mystery, and there's like popular themes, and it's very visually appealing, which makes it really good for GIF sets and content creation for a platform like Tumblr. But yeah, I got really into Hannibal, which was a show that ran specifically from 2013 to 2015.
The perfect date range.
It spiraled to the point where I had actually, I had watched Silence of the Lambs. I had not watched Red Dragon or any of the other books that got turned into movies by Thomas Harris of the original series. But I had seen Silence of the Lambs. I really liked it. But it didn't, make me interested in reading the books or watching the other movies. I was just like, oh, yeah, that was a good standalone. But really, Silence of the Lambs is in the middle of the series. So it goes Red Dragon as the first one, Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Rising.
Okay.
And what was interesting was the fact that Hannibal is not a big character in the original series. He is in that, he becomes this really big character. He starts off as, someone that is briefly mentioned, briefly talked to, but it's really the story of Will Graham. And, as his character gained popularity, so did the story shift over to Hannibal's story. So he's become, this icon. The director, Brian Fuller, had created the show, and it's an interpretation. There's a lot of elements, the characters, a lot of them got gender bent, which was interesting because originally, all of them are men. They're all men. And that was a big point in Silence of the Lambs, was that they were all men, and, this woman, Clarice Starling, is able to see through all of their male proclivities and kind of just cut through the bullshit and solve this case. And it's in embracing her being a woman and her understanding as a woman, and even just her thought processes as a woman is what helps her ultimately to get to the solution and lofind the killer and whatever. But this show had kind of taken a lot of liberties, so it had gotten some critiques. So Freddie Lowndes, who's a journalist, is now a woman. Alan Bloom, who was one of the doctors, is a woman. One of the scientists, she's now an Asian woman. The lead detective is now a black man instead of a white dude. So that was what had attracted me initially to the show, because I was like, hell yeah, give me some of that good shit. Representation was a really important thing.
For sure.
And it still is, but it was something that I was happy to take care of. I had a giant crush on Hugh Dancy. My tag for him was literally Hugh Dancy, my fancy.
Oh my god, that is so funny.
For a long time gay person, for someone who has known that she has been attracted to women for a very, very long time, Tumblr has made me very question whether I was really gay, because
Maybe.
I almost had this opposite experience where I was like, am I attracted to men?
Okay, so when I was going through my archive, it was like, okay, yeah, here's so much content about Leah Michelle and Jennifer Morrison and Lauren Graham, but then there was also like a lot of like white boys with one specific haircut content, and like you could definitely tell that I was like, I'm straight. Look at me posting all of these white boys in the midst of all these actresses who I look up to.
Look up to.
And it's like,
I just want to be her, not be with her.
Literally. So that's really funny. The complete opposite of me.
Literally the complete opposite. I started to ship like Will and Alana. I thought I made 2 playlists for them, so that's fun. That's really dumb. And then obviously the Will and Hannibal stuff started coming along. I never shipped them in the way that most people did, which was very romantically and sexually. I had always been like, they are bound to each other, but not in a way that I thought, like, I just wanted Will to live in Virginia with his dogs, like he was always wanted to be. He just wanted to be in Virginia with his dogs.
That's so funny. I don't know if you've experienced this as a woman, but like I've always had a hard time like shipping like men with other men. Like it just feels wrong to me. Like,
no, that has never been an issue for me.
Oh, never mind. I don't know. Like, I've only ever come to experience it with the vampire show that I was obsessed with, and that I was writing fan fiction for, because I would like read a lot of other fan fiction, and there was a ton of the like 2 male vampire characters being shipped together, and like for me, I don't know, I was just like very uncomfortable with it, and I was like, this seems wrong, but also like, there is no reason for me to think that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it comes from a place where, like, you know, when you read something, or when you, like, get into something, there's a lot of empathy that you have with the character, and, like, the projections that you have with the character. So, like, I can understand where, like, it's a little, it's almost, like, situational, where you're like, oh, well, this is a situation that I wouldn't be in, so...
Right.
It wouldn't make sense. But, like, I think the reason why it wasn't an issue for me is because, like, you know, when I look back on, like, the books and the movies that I watched and read, like, unfortunately there's, like, this huge dearth of women involved. And there's, like, not a lot of books or movies that I was exposed to that have, like, a lot of, or enough women to even, like, ship. Like, the Mako Mori problem, which was that, like, in Pacific Rim, it's a great movie and like a great piece of film that I really, really love and enjoy, but there's not even another female character that it would make sense for Mako to ship her with. So, like, that also becomes a barrier where, like, I got into these shows and I got into these, like, pieces of media where, like, there just weren't any women or weren't enough women, and, like, so that becomes like its own kind of obstacle, and like in that sense, I think that, like, you know, when I look at the things that you had watched, I almost feel like bad for not watching these things that like featured more women and had more prominent figures, but that was just not what I was raised on. Like, that was just not the stuff that my parents were watching, or like not the stuff that my friends were watching, so I didn't watch it. But like that's definitely stuff that like I now make the conscious decision to like either pay attention to the fact that they don't have women, or like at least like make the effort to support shows that have more women, or like feature more women, and so on and so forth.
Right. And I mean, it's also just like a matter of taste. Like, I don't know. I'm into the softness of Gilmore Girls, and like not everyone is, because it's Gilmore Girls, and it's like
oh, okay. I thought you were coming at me going like, no. I'm a bitch with taste.
No, I'm just saying that, like, I tend to go for the fluffy, stupid shit, and like I feel like you're smart. So you're like, I'm gonna watch these intellectual
No,
shows.
that's incorrect, and you know that. It's
I know,
like
it's a matter of taste. Just
yeah, it's just a genre difference. That's it. Like
totally.
But yeah, so Hannibal had done these great things with like the characters, and season 1 was really interesting. Like, so all the episode names were for French like foods and things like that, and like, you know, the French food culture is very, very like specific and involved. And Hannibal, being someone who eats people, spoiler alert, he's a fucking cannibal.
Oh my God.
You know, it was like fun to play with the audience's already existing understanding of the character. And I think Brian Fuller was very brilliant to include all of that into the show and make it an ingrained part, because like there's no need to educate the viewer on, you know, what was happening. Right. He had actually done, so he's the director of American Gods, a show that I don't watch, but it is very popular.
I don't watch it either.
Yeah. But the show that he did before this that I did watch a couple of episodes of, unknowingly that it was connected, was Pushing Daisies. Do you know that one?
I do know that one. I didn't watch it when it was on, but I know the show.
Yeah, so, you know, he touches someone and he can bring them back to life, but if he touches them again, they will die. And his high school sweetheart dies, and so he brings her back to life, and now he can't touch her. And it's really sweet. It is very, very, you can see the visual direction is pretty much the same, like these very strong, vivid colors. The color scheme is very, very unique, and it's ever present in all of the scenes. Like, you can tell he's got like a fucking Pantone swatch out the entire time, going like, we gotta stick to this shit, alright? This is your Bible, bitch.
PMS 364, please, and only PMS 364. If we stray, everyone is getting fired.
Literally, like, you can tell that the artistic direction is that kind of like devotion to keeping the themes very strong, because like the colors all have meanings and things like that. So like, I really liked him for that. And then he did Hannibal. And boy, this show like had gone through and taken me through almost all of the crazy shit that you can get from Tumblr. So like, your queer baiting accusations, going through like 6 different ships all within like one season. It all happens. Anyone who could get together got together. And like,
oh my God, it actually happened, like, in
canon? Yeah, absolutely. So, just to spoilers, here's what ends up happening. So like, first season happens and people are shipping Will and Alana and Hannibal and Will. And then there's some other characters that get involved in season 2. Like, what's her name? Margot, who is canonically, like, she just suffers a lot and it's really sad. But then people are shipping Margot and Will, Margot and Alana, and like, Margot and Alana are the only gay ones, like, Beverly and all of it. Guess what? All of it happens. Oh my God. Will ends up with Alana for a little while, and then they break off, and then Alana ends up with Hannibal for a little while, and then they break off, and then Will and Margot end up together, and then they break it off. And then the end all that happens is Alana, in a twist, Alana and Margot end up as wives, and they have a son together. Fucking insane. And then Will and Hannibal end the series by embracing each other, and like, it's like there's this whole thing where it was like, before this, there's a character, who is talking to Will, and Will is like married, he has a wife, and like has this whole life, but he comes back, to go through the events that happened in Red Dragon, which is the original first book. So they're going through all of that, and one of the therapists goes, does your wife know about how intimate you are with Hannibal, with him?
Oh.
And Will, it just has this like moment of silence, and it's like very, very, like, there's a lot to imply that Will and Hannibal are a thing, but in a way where it's not like meant to be like, it's almost like they have this deep understanding of each other, and they are the only 2 people in the world to each other. And it's crazy. It's just insane. Like, the fact that Alana and Margot had ended up together as wives, canonically, in the story.
That's crazy to me.
I never saw it coming. I shipped it, but I was like, there's no way. Because you know how it is.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to give it to us.
Right.
Period.
And there you go, and you have it.
NBC was ready to cancel Hannibal. And I think the director knew that because Hannibal has broken the record for being the lowest rated show.
No shit.
That got renewed for a second and third season. And also the lowest rating show, period.
Oh my goodness.
No one liked Hannibal. No one in their right mind liked Hannibal. It was very gruesome. It was very gory. It was very graphic. And honestly, like, sometimes the payout would just not be worth it. Like, for these characters, like, they would just go through these terrible, traumatizing things, and then it'd be like, okay, we'll see you in season 3. Like, there's no hope. Period. You know Hannibal wins.
Oh my god. Well, hearing this can make me I can just like see the Hannibal fandom on Tumblr. Yeah. Like I could just feel the energy.
It's really feral. I was not involved with the fandom as much as like an onlooker. Like usually I'm very engaged. I'll write fan fiction.
Yeah.
I'll make text posts. I'll blog a lot of stuff. But honestly, Hannibal was like a fandom that I got really into, and I got really into the story. Like that's what got me to read the books. Hannibal, this TV show, was what got me to read the books, what got me to watch the other movies, and that was what had gotten me into the story to the point where like I know it to an extreme extent. Like I really am familiar with it, and I'm familiar with. I started watching movies that had Hugh Dancy in it. I started watching stuff that had Mads in it. Like, I just wanted to see anything with it. Like, I just wanted to consume that content so badly. And so, like, I think that it was, like, a Tumblr obsession, yes, but it was only an obsession that could live on Tumblr, if that makes sense.
Yes, that does make sense.
I'd never post about it on Facebook or like even on Twitter. Like it would not be appropriate at all.
Right.
And it's like the kind of pervert that likes Will and Hannibal is like unspeakable. Like there's always that one fandom, that one pairing that the fandom has that's like disgusting, and you're like, oh my god, you guys are a bunch of pervs. That's Will and Hannibal in the Hannibal fandom. It's like you guys are gross. Like all the women love women who are in Hannibal are like, Alana and Margot have a son, and they called each other wives, and they were like helping each other. And you can see it's like very sweet, and they'll like compare them to paintings and like be all gay and shit because Margot had exacted revenge, and like Alana had helped her, and it was like a whole thing, and it was like amazing and empowering.
Yeah. That's so funny.
So it was like this wholesome, pure shit. Well, meanwhile, like, Will and Hannibal are a bunch of fucking disgusting idiots, and they're, like, their ship name is literally Murder Husbands, and it's like, y'all are stupid.
No. That was, like, once upon a time, it was I've seen a lot of, like, incesty stuff.
No!
Because, like, the thing is that, so, Emma is from Fairy Tale Land. Oh, I forgot to mention this. So Emma is from Fairy Tale Land, and she's Snow White and Prince Charming's daughter that was sent through a wardrobe like 20 minutes after she was birthed as an infant, and was sent to the real world because the evil queen, Regina, was casting this curse, and Snow White and Prince Charming panicked and sent the baby away. Meanwhile, if they had just waited, the baby could have come with them and like would have stayed a baby. But Emma gets sent to the real world. She grows up in the foster care system, and now she's 28 years old. It's 28 years later. She's a full-grown woman, and she goes back to Storybrooke, where all of these fairy tale characters are, and time has not moved.
Oh.
So no one has aged.
Okay.
So her parents, who should be, old, are 28 years old. The same age as Emma. So,
oh no.
Yeah, so unfortunately, there's a lot of content that's like, Emma and Prince Charming.
No!
Her father. Emma and Snow White, her mother. Like,
what the fuck?
Also a lot of, like, Regina and her abusive mother. And, like, I've read some, and I'm like, why would anyone write this?
Who?
I know, right? I'm like, I'm calling the police.
Dead ass. What the fuck?
So, I can relate to the garbage ships.
Jesus Christ. I mean, unfortunately, like, Will and Hannibal is the main ship. Like, that is literally what the show writers, like, kind of push. It's so weird because, like, I didn't see it for the first 2 seasons. Like, I mean, I saw it, but I was, like, not interested. But they would, like, literally have these weird, tense moments where, like, literally they'd just be, like, looking into each other's eyes for like 10 minutes, and I'd be like, don't, and I'd literally be sitting there going, don't see it. Like, Hannibal is literally reaching out and touching Will's face and, like, caressing it, and I'd be like, don't see it, I don't see it.
You're like a horse with blinders on, you're like, nope.
I pretend I do not see, closing my eyes, watching the show.
Minding my own business, like, nope, I refuse.
No thanks. I want Will and Alana back together.
That's so funny. Anything else?
No, I mean, I think that was, like, it was just so strange to get into, and then, like, the fact that I didn't even really watch the last season, but I just, like, kept up with the tag, and that's how I know what happens. And then the fact that, like, I just completely forgot about it. It used to be something that I was so obsessed with, and I could, like, start riddling facts and, like, remembering moments about the show and things like that, but, like, once it ended, and, like, once I stopped stalking the tag, like, I stopped caring. I, like, literally forgot that it had happened, but I remembered the books, and I, like, remembered the movies, and, like, upon rewatch, like, it was really interesting, like, the Edward Norton, Hannibal, or Will Graham versus the Hugh Dancy Will Graham was, like, something that I was really interested in, and I don't remember. The only thing that I felt that Hannibal was lacking is that Edward Norton had the fucking balls to give Will Graham a fucking southern accent like he was supposed to, and Hugh Dancy does not have a southern accent.
Oh, no.
I know. It's like, I think it would have been hot if he had a southern accent. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh my god.
I'm gonna leave it at that. I mean, he lives in fucking Virginia, and he's like a hick kind of man, so I think it would have been fine to give him a southern accent, and I think that NBC and Brian Fuller are a bunch of cowards.
Literally cowardly.
Made him look like a fucking Brooklyn-ass hipster. Fucking yuppie.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you noted how, this was something that was, like, your whole life for a long time, or, like, a really big part of your life. And, like, I would spend, like, hours of my time consuming this content.
Yeah.
Had, like, tags on Tumblr. I made a side blog for
Really?
once upon a time. Specifically, like, Swan Queen fanfiction, but, like, it was there.
Okay.
And it exists.
Yeah.
And, I used to be able to, like, quote the show and, like, knew every plot point. And then I stopped watching. And, like you, I, like, kept up with the show through the tag and, like, what I saw on Tumblr with the blogs that I followed. And then it just, like, kind of became this thing that, like, used to be everything and is now nothing.
Inconsequential. Like, the amount of hours that I wasted on that platform, and that now I just can't even recall.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I looked through my playlist, and I was like, oh, this one says literally deadass Will and Alana. This one says Will and Hannibal.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, they're not public, but yeah.
That's so
They're
funny.
there. It's wild. There's, like, cover art and everything. It's disgusting.
So cute.
Stop.
Okay, yeah, so if we
ship.
It's
time to ship the characters.
So I think it's kind of funny because I was thinking if I had taken Emma Swan and put her with Hannibal, you could be like Swan Murderer. Swan Murders.
Well, the reason why they're called murder husbands is because they both at some point commit murder, so.
Oh. Okay, so then maybe I'll take Regina and ship her with Hannibal, and they could be called Murder Queens.
I love that. Oh my god, I ship it. Great.
Because she is also a murderer.
Oh my god, I love it. I think that Will Graham is a man who needs to retire and just live with his dogs for the rest of his life. I know I said this already, but that's the only thing I ship Will Graham with is mental health. Mental wellness. That's all I want for him. The second I saw him, I was like, that's me dissociating on the couch right there, and I need him to be okay so that I can be okay.
We love a mentally well boy.
Need a boy who has some mental wellness. Like, that's literally his whole shtick in the first episode is he's like, please, I'm so unwell. I keep adopting dogs and I just want to be left alone. Thanks.
Oh, that's so funny.
And I was like, me. Love
great.
him.
Well, we love Tumblr. Tumblr was a great time in my life.
Tumblr was such a phenomenal experience, and it was so unique, and I'm sad that the platform has, like, spiraled the way it has.
Yeah. I still kind of use it. I've been using it as of recent.
Yeah, I think we talked about this, how, like, we're both on it, and it's been nice to, like, take it from a more casual point of view, because I think it had, like, culminated and almost, like, spiraled into this thing that had taken up so much of my time, and that like we had said, like, I just didn't remember a lot of stuff, and it was like really messing with me. So, you know, it was nice to take this break, and now it's like something that I don't have to take seriously, and I know that I don't have to talk about or think about. But I would be really interested to talk more about Tumblr, like, in the future as well, because there's like a lot to it, and there's a lot more stuff that I had gotten into because of Tumblr that, like, it literally consumed so much time that there's no way we can't talk more about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure we will talk more about it as we go along.
For sure.
But what are we going to talk about now for next week, now that we are Murder Queen stans?
Murder Queen stans. So I actually got dinner with our friend Heather the other night, and she was like, when are you guys going to invite me on the pod?
Oh my god!
And I said, well, what are you doing not this coming Monday, but the following Monday? Whatever that date is. The 3rd. And she was like, oh, I'm coming on the pod.
Hell yes! We have our musical episode, everyone! Oh my god!
So next week we will be talking musicals.
With our
special guest, Heather.
Who
is a musical fanatic, absolutely feral.
There is no way to describe her other than the leading expert in our local little circle on musicals, and she has seen so many of them and is so enthusiastic about them, and I'm very excited for her to talk about it.
So, I think we should bring in one musical to talk about next time.
Okay.
And,
yes.
I don't know, maybe our history with it, what we like about it. Some of our favorite bops.
Ooh, yes. Oh my god, I'm very excited.
Great.
Wow.
Thanks for listening.
Coming on this
Tumblr journey with us. And
thank you for spiraling into this hellhole with us. We really appreciate that you were willing to re-traumatize yourself with this site.
Okay, literally me. I'm like, wow, why am I traumatized? Anyway, tune in next week. We'll talk musicals.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.